Hey guys, this is Amanda again, aka Vixen Studio, Fox Hollow Farm, however you know me. Today I'm going to do my second tutorial since I got such a good response on the last one. So today I'm going to do not a full color change, but I am going to do advanced Pinto patterning, and I'm also going to show you some tips to make your image look as real as possible if that's what your style is. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about why and how I choose my horses in my backgrounds, because that's a really important step. So if you really want a strong image, you're going to want to pick a background that is strong already. Of course, you can blend stock images yourself. Once you get more advanced, you can do that, but if you want like a quick way to have a strong background and the only thing you have to worry about is making the horse look like he belongs in it, then I suggest either following some of these collections where you can easily find really good stocks. This is one of my favorite artists on here. Just make sure if you use a pre-made background like this that you look down in the comments and see if there's any other like any stocks that pre-made creator used that you also need to put on your image. It's because we want everyone to be credited. Okay, so I've chosen this background for our winner horse, Ghost Herd, owned by Hollow Tree Acres. I wanted a horse that had really interesting patterning that was kind of difficult, so I'm going to show you guys how to deal with this sort of coloring, and it's also going to be a little bit harder because the horse is at a totally different angle than the game art horse. Okay, so I've chosen this horse for a couple of reasons. One is that it's a really clear image. The stock provider did a really good job, used a really high quality camera. It's going to create a really nice image once it's blended, because this is also high quality. I also chose this horse because if you'll see, the light source in the image in this background that I've chosen is coming from outside. It's coming from, it's shining in towards us. And that's also the same for this horse as well. Can you see the difference? The light is hitting him sort of from the back. That's why his front is kind of in shadow, like it is here. So the light sources match, so it's going to look more believable in the end. Okay. So I'm just going to cut him out, like always. Now Okay guys, sorry about that. My computer is taxing pretty hard. I guess running QuickTime Player and Photoshop at the same time takes quite a lot of RAM, I guess. Alright. So anyway, first step is done. Horse is cut out. Placed pretty much where we're gonna have her in the background. So next we go to noise, reduce noise. This one I'm gonna reduce to 5, I think, because I want to keep some of those details. Let's just smudge them out later. Okay. The next thing we do is, the next thing I do anyway, is I'm gonna go to image, adjustments, color balance, and this is an important step because you want the horse to match the background lighting and the colors in the background to make it look more realistic, like it's actually in that environment. So I'm gonna add some blue because there's cyan in the background. Not a whole lot of blue, some green. Definitely closer, but you also don't want to go crazy with this because then you're going to lose the color of your horse. So That's good for now. First I want to match the... Yeah, that's closer. So I'm going to try to match the same amount of contrast that's going on in the background. And there's pretty strong contrast in that background, so... I'm trying to see what the auto features do. Probably not going to be enough. So we're going to have to up the contrast ourselves. Maybe dull down the brightness a little bit. Because that'll make those markings really pop once we add them later. Okay, so now that the horse is matching the value system better, I can go back. I'm going to turn her vibrance down too. Not a whole lot, just enough because the colors are kind of muted in the background, so we kind of want the same effect on the horse. I took the preview off, that's why. Okay. I'm gonna go back to color balance. I'm gonna play with the shadows, and the shadows, there we go. I'm gonna add a darker, bluier shadow. It's already looking better. But we don't want to make her too green because we don't want to lose the bay color, so we can't go too crazy with this. I mean, look at the difference. Speaks for itself, really. I'm not gonna go too crazy with those, actually. That might be a little bit too much. Okay. Good enough for now. Okay, so now that our horse is kind of fitting into the background, the next thing I'm gonna do is smudge the horse to even out our canvas. And I always do this before I add the patterning, because you don't want to go over the body with the smudge tool and then you'll erase all the nice lines you have for the patterning. So smudge, keep it on a low strength or else your horse will disappear or turn into a big pudding blob. And I'm not gonna use a whole lot. I'm just gonna smudge out areas I think are a little sharp, because I want to keep a lot of sharpness to this horse, especially on the face, because that's the most prominent part of it. I also use the smudge tool to get rid of things that I think would be distracting. So like this little dirt speck right here is distracting. These highlights are kind of sharp. I don't really want your eye going there. There's some things that your eye will go directly to them if they're not muted or got rid of. So like back here on this back leg, I think that's just part of the background, but that's pretty strong. So I'm just gonna go over. Not really not enough really to tell a difference, but I think it makes a difference overall. Like this whole area is pretty prominent. I don't want it to be, so I'm gonna soften it. I have a lot of brushes. Oh, come on. It's alright. Come on, don't. Photoshop does not like me using my tablet and the record software and Photoshop at the same time, so it's kind of being a butt. Don't worry, computer, I won't use it long. Okay, good enough for now. Save. Now I'm gonna take the back around back here. Now I don't want to lose all of the definition back there, but I definitely want to mute it and soften it so it's not so distracting. Yep, this layer. lens blur. I don't think it needs that much. 6. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. Okay. I'm actually going to rotate the horse because I want to see if it looks better this way. I don't know. I kind of like it better this way. Yeah, I like it better this way. I can't really figure out why, but I do like it better this way. Okay, so that means we're gonna have to go in through here and clean this up. That's okay. Would have done that anyway, but now it's gonna be really distracting if I don't. That was terrible. Cool. Save. Alright, so now's probably about the time I would start adding patterns. Let me just touch up her feet real quick. And by touch up, I mean erase. I'm just gonna paint back over them again with the grass, and I'll show you how to do that too. Okay, so when you're picking a horse to do markings on, like really extreme pinto patterning like this, you're gonna want a horse that has little to no markings on them, like a source photo that has little to no markings, because when you're adding the markings, the existing markings on that photo are going to clash very obviously with the ones that you add. And it's hard to kind of integrate them and make them look right, so the best way to avoid that is to just pick a horse that doesn't have a lot of markings. That's what I've done here for simplicity's sake. If you find a photo that you're just absolutely in love with and you want to use it, go ahead. It's just going to be a lot more difficult for you in the long run. Okay, so the first thing I do, you're definitely going to want a tablet for this to get the best result. You can do it without one, but I highly recommend having one. So, what I do to add markings, again, this is something that a lot of people have different techniques for. People will just kind of figure out what works best for them for this. You can watch a lot of tutorials on YouTube. A lot of artists have written tutorials as well, step-by-step pictures sort of thing, but I'm going to show you how I do my markings. Okay, so usually when I do this, I like to have them side by side, but the horse is facing the wrong direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate everything. second. Forgot to flatten this. Come on. Oh, there it is. Okay. Crap. I just want to flatten this layer. Shit, that's not what I wanted. Okay, never mind. We're just gonna have to... I guess I could open this in preview. This is more difficult than I thought it was gonna be. Okay, save image. It's fine. Crap. Okay, so I have such a messy desktop, I apologize. Here we go. Hopefully that'll... Yes! Okay, so instead of rotating my image that I'm working on, I'm just gonna rotate this one. Edit. You don't have to do this, but if it'll help you get the markings right. I'm not very familiar with preview. How do I flip it? Is there a way to do that? Okay. I'll just do it in Photoshop and then open it. Screw it. Why can't I transform this? Oh, it's locked. Okay. There we go. That was a lot of hassle for something that shouldn't be so difficult. Okay, there we go. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull both of these up side by side, like this. And then I'm going to do this with my tablet, or you can do it with your trackpad if that's what you use, or whatever you use. But what I'm gonna do... Let's see, where am I gonna start? I don't really necessarily want to start on the head, because that's kind of complicated, so usually I start on the head, but we'll start from the back. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the lasso tool, and I'm gonna select this option. And I'm going to look at my image and kind of guesstimate, I guess, where the markings would go from this angle. You can add a little bit of jaggedy edge to them at this stage, but we're going to add more with the smudge tool later. Okay, cool. You can just go like... See what I mean? I'm going to show you what I mean with how it just looks wrong. Tail's a mess, we're gonna have to redraw it. Okay. So this is all one big marking up here. And it looks like part of her ear is covered. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. Do 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 do. Do. Okay. Na 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 na. Da, da. panicking yet. Okay, obviously we want this whole area to be white. That darling little mascara eye. Looks like she's wearing eyeliner. Alright. And I did that using the subtract part of the lasso tool. So now I'm going to go back to add. Alright. So now that we have all our white areas selected, the next thing we're going to do is go up to image, brightness, contrast, turn the brightness all the way up, the contrast all the way down. And you're going to be playing in this area a lot while you're doing this. So every horse is different. Every horse needs a different amount of editing to achieve that white look. But the most important thing is to preserve the shadows in through here, because if you just turn it all the way white, you're going to lose a lot of that shading, and you're going to have to either go in and repaint it or not have it, and that's not good. So I'm just going to arbitrarily play with this. It's always a good idea to keep the contrast low. Also to turn the saturation down so you can get more of a gray look instead of that green look that was on the base horse. So that's already looking more white, but you don't want to make it totally gray and lose like all that color. So you want a little bit of it to come through. So just kind of play with your settings. You can turn the saturation down and just turn up the vibrance, or you can do the other way. It just depends. If you turn the vibrance down lower, it's going to preserve your shadows more. Depending on what you want. That looks pretty good. I might also play with the auto features while you have this selected, just to see what it does. Sometimes you get an interesting... No, that wasn't good. So sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You're also going to want to go back to your color balance and put a little bit more green in that, or a little bit more something in it to make it look like it's part of the horse and not like paint. You want to reflect some of that same color. That's pretty good. Maybe a little blue. Can you see the difference? It's subtle, but it does make a difference. Maybe, I don't know. What does shadows do? It's a little too green. I actually like that. Sorry, I'm gonna be talking to myself. There's too much of something. Maybe there's too much blue. Yeah, that's good. I know it's so subtle, but it will drive you nuts. Okay, so we've used a bay horse, which in of itself is not bad when you're doing a bay pinto. However, you are going to have the black points are going to be darker than the rest of the body, so you're going to have to do them separately. I might actually go into... Is it vibrance? No. I know where everything is. I just get... Okay, here we go. Lightness. This is going to wash out any of the area you've selected, so you will get a really white. but obviously if you use too much, you're going to lose a lot of that detail. So you don't want to go crazy with this. You still want the horse to look like it naturally has these markings, so you don't want to add too much white. If you think it's really going to help, though, like it's definitely making a difference on this horse, then definitely do it, but don't add too much, because otherwise it's going to look really fake. You want to preserve as much of the original shadows as possible. You can also go back to contrast and play with it afterwards to get some of that. Yeah, like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. Much better. So, like I was saying earlier about these points, so we're going to go back to our points, or the darker areas that kind of give away that this is a fake, an altered horse. You want to eliminate that because it's pretty obvious, at least to someone like me, when the step isn't done. Okay, so we don't want these jaggedy edges, so we're going to go up to refine edge and feather it just a bit so it's not such a harsh difference. I don't recommend going to, maybe we could try brightness first, because you don't want to lose the shadow. That's fine. Okay, maybe play with it a little bit. You really just want to get rid of the hue or the difference in value. So turning down the contrast would help. Okay. I'm gonna have to add some yellow back into this vibrance. Just play with your settings. You'll find something that works. Maybe add a little bit of white just to get rid of that. It's mainly those back legs that concern me. And it's still pretty obvious, I think. Color balance. It just needs a little bit of green, I think, to bring it back. Yeah. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And we're gonna go back to contrast, and I want that contrast back. Maybe not. Brightness tone, just a little bit. I know it seems counterintuitive, but there we go. I'm not sure if you can tell a difference, but it's definitely there. So I'm going to save. Alright, so our first step to adding markings is done. Alright. The next part's fun. So now that our markings are pretty much there, we don't really, well, I'll hold on to that. So the next thing we're going to do is go back. You can skip this step if you really don't feel like doing it, but I highly recommend you do because it looks really nice. And it kind of helps blend these edges. So yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to blend these edges in to the existing coat. So to do that, I kind of did this already in my first tutorial, but here it applies on a much bigger scale. So my happy numbers settings that I've found for doing this are 30% strength on your smudge tool and a 1% or 1 pixel brush. And the reason is because you want such a small brush and a low, kind of a low dosage, low strength, is because you want it to mimic the effect of hair growing instead of a paint splatter. So on the face, just kind of go over like this and pull and tug, and in the direction the hair is going usually. So on the face, the hair is going this way. So you're going to push and pull it this way. That's why I said add some of the distinctive edges in there, like the big peaks and valleys, because you can really make them look real, especially if you do this step. You can exaggerate or pull back as much as you want. It really creates a nice effect, I think. Very real looking effect, if that's what you're going for. If you like the splotchy look, then and that suits your style, then go for it. But if you're really going for that realistic look, this is probably what you're gonna want to do. And it takes a little bit of time, but the effect is really nice. And it kind of creates that gradient that a lot of horses have in real life between their white markings and their base color. You know, like that edge around the marking. Some horses it's less prominent, but this effect will kind of give you that too. What is that? I can get rid of that. This is also a quick way to get rid of blemishes like that you don't like, or whatever, you missed the spot, you can just drag it in. No big deal. Might actually bump up the strength just a bit on the body. Yeah. It's so fun doing markings. I mean, once you like get this down, they're kind of daunting at first because you're like, oh no, like it's not gonna look convincing, it isn't gonna look real, or I don't know, I can't draw or whatever. I mean, but once you can figure out something that works for you, it's really cool to be able to add markings to customize that horse even more. Because let's be real, some horse-eaten horses have some pretty crazy markings that DeviantArt just can't supply. So if you have skills doing this as an artist, you're probably going to get a lot bigger customer base. Or if you already have a big one, you're going to have really happy clients. Because they love seeing their horses brought to life. At least I do. So again, make sure you're going in the general direction of the hair, the opposite direction of the line too. So you're kind of, I don't know if you can just see, but I'm kind of twisting my pen around to kind of get different directions going to make it look a little bit more realistic. Because if you just pull it in the same direction, it's gonna look repetitive and unnatural. It's always a good idea to kind of switch it up. I also apologize for not being loud enough on my last tutorial. I'm sorry about that. I got a lot of comments saying that they could barely hear me, so I hope you can hear me a lot better on this one. I tried to fix the problem, but we'll see. Let me know if it was too loud, too quiet, louder, I need to talk less, whatever. Just let me know. Also, let me know what the next thing you'd like to see is. I know someone, Riley, asked for a color change, a full color change. I was going to do that in this tutorial too, but I figured it'd be kind of a lot all at once, so I'm just going to do the patterning today. And then I'm on my spring break right now, so I can probably release another tutorial before I head home for a couple days. So maybe I'll do a full color change then. And then I'll do a combo tutorial. How's that sound? La 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 la. I've also decided that for this tutorial series I'm going to be doing random drawings for... I'm going to be giving away free portraits as the example or the tutorial image. So I'll be posting on the forums looking for horses that suit whatever my tutorial is going to be, and you might get lucky and get a free portrait. So keep an eye out for those on the forums. Today I did one in chat, but it was a little disorganized, so I think I'm gonna do them on the forums from now on. I thought that was a neat idea. Alright, let's take a step back real quick. Wow, look at that. Doesn't that look so much more real than this? Even this, really. I mean, y'all artists are really great at, you know, who do all this. I'm sure it takes so much time. But that effect of having the jaggedy, hairy look, it really makes a difference. Wow. It's really showing up nicely on this horse, too. This is cool. Pull it out just a little bit more, I think. I think we can push it. So that definitely the pulling and pushing in different directions makes a very interesting effect. Oops, I didn't mean to put that in there, but oh well, we're gonna pretend like it means to be there. This is so cool. Save. For those of you that are curious, I am a graphic designer by profession. I'm a student graduating this spring from the Savannah College of Art and Design. So that's exciting. I wish I could have a job that just let me do this all day. But, oh well. Hopefully I'll find something that I can do similarly. That's somewhat similar to this sort of art, because this is really what I love to do. I've really fallen in love with it in my year I've been on here. I had my horse Eden anniversary not long ago. I think it was a couple days ago. So yeah. Almost done. I know this is boring. You get the idea, I know. Do any of you watch South Park? I have South Park on right now. I don't know if you can hear it in the background. It's a good one. Timmy. Timmy's my favorite. Timmy and Jimmy. Alright. It's looking awesome. Okay. We got one more to do and then we're done with this. I'm gonna go kind of quick through this. Good enough, good enough, good enough. I'm sure some of you fellow artists out there, when you're doing work for yourselves, you're just like, meh, it's good enough, whatever. But when you're doing it for work for another player, you're like, oh shoot, I gotta fix that. How do I fix it? I can't let that fly. That's how I am. When I'm doing something for myself, I'm like, meh, whatever. I can deal with it. But when it's for someone else, I will move heaven and earth to fix it. Even if I wouldn't bother on my own horses. Okay. Cool. Oh, that's looking really good. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier with how existing markings are gonna clash a lot with the addings you, or the markings you add. But that's a pretty simple fix. Either you can use the burn tool, or you can just, go over it with a brush. not on the same layer, create a new layer. Just kind of meh. That's kind of sloppy, but we're gonna go over it again with grass and stuff. Whatever. Okay, that's good enough. This is so cool. Alright. So she's looking awesome. Very cool. Okay, so the next step, usually I do this before actually, but I'm gonna do it now because I forgot, is to blow out the mane. So that we're gonna do really high strength, 90. The strength you use is gonna depend on the strength of your tablet, or this, sorry, not the strength, like the sensitivity of your tablet. Mine is pretty insensitive, so I have to put the strength pretty high. But if yours has like for instance on the trackpad, the sensitivity is a lot higher, so I don't need to have such a high strength. But for some reason my tablet I do. Maybe I'm just not pushing hard enough. It does make a difference if I push harder, but I'm more comfortable with this level of strength. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just kind of babbling. If you watched my first tutorial, I'll do a kind of a more detailed explanation of how I'm doing this. All my mains I use the smudge tool for very effectively. You don't have to redraw a main unless you want to. Usually I don't. Sometimes I have to if they have like no main, but this horse is fine. Long manes would look kind of silly on an eventing horse anyway, don't you think? I don't think I've ever seen a real life eventing horse with a really long mane. So I'm just doing the same technique I did on the markings down here, is just kind of pulling it in the direction of existing strands. There's a little chunk up here I missed. There we go. You can kind of blend that too if you want. Pull a white hair over to kind of make it look like it's overlapping. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Alright, now the tail. This horse has no tail. So we're gonna give this poor horse a tail. Whoops. So I'm getting these long strands. This is all from the smudge tool. I'm getting these long strands from pushing really hard on my tablet. That's why it's nice to have a tablet, because you can easily just have a nice solid line, or you can have it fade out. It's just all from like how you would naturally draw. The same technique you would use drawing with a graphite pencil on paper. It's the same sort of response. What did you do? No. Okay. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but we'll give her something of a tail, because she had nothing. Actually, I think this is part of her tail up here. I don't. Now it is. It is now. That's the fun thing about art. You could just say, "Up, well, now it is." I mean, it's better than nothing. Maybe I'd spend more time on this if I wasn't doing a tutorial. Probably would. I think that looks fine. Okay. Good enough. Save. Alright. Looking good. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and erase. Oops. Not that much. I'm gonna take off some of these extra or kind of sketchy edges. What nice clean edges. This is bugging me so much. Goodbye. That's the nice thing about this. If something's bugging you, you can just erase it. Goodbye. Feet are always a challenge. They've always been a challenge for me too. It's just, you can get everything else right, but if you don't ground the horse properly, it just is the worst. So you just put in all that work and this horse still looks like he's floating. Stop. She looks kind of evil, actually, with that marking. Alright, save. Cool. Okay. So, now, I guess I should add in that pink muzzle. I've got a pink over here I've been using. This is really easy. Especially if she just has her whole nose is pink. Just color over it with pink, like this. I don't think she has any pink around her eyes. Nope. Cool. Then we choose one of these settings. Probably not that one. Multiplies to... let's just go through them all. That's not bad. That's not bad, is it? It's not quite dark enough, so I'm gonna duplicate it. Whoa, that's not what I meant. I'm gonna multiply it. It's better. Gonna erase a little bit of that. Stop. There we go. Cool. Alright. I guess I could do this. I'm not gonna bother, because we're just gonna cover them up with... Okay, so I'm gonna play with the shadows on the legs, because they're not quite where I want them to be. So a quick way to add a shadow or a highlight is to go into the same place down here, right below the smudge tool. You're gonna want the burn tool, and if you want it to be darker, I'm just gonna go over it like that. I don't think there's enough contrast there. Might add a little bit up here. Nah. That's better. I know a lot of these things are really subtle, but as you do this more and more, you'll notice them. Okay, what's the next thing? Probably the shadow. Alright, my last tutorial I showed you guys how to do a quick shadow. I'm gonna do the same thing here. So I'm gonna take the darkest shadow I can find already existing. You don't want to use black. You're gonna want it, unless it turns out it's not quite black. You don't want to use black because it tends to be too flat, and you want a shadow that already fits into your background. Is gonna look appropriate. I'm not gonna spend too much time on the shadow. Come on. Really? Screw it. Just make a new layer. Okay. Kind of goes like that. Okay, so we're gonna hit multiply. That's fine. Okay. Really subtle, but whatever. We needed to. Okay, so now for the grass. This is an important step too to making your horse look grounded. I didn't do it for a while and it was really affecting the quality of my work. So I highly suggest you do this. Take the time to do this because it really does make a difference. I'm just gonna go over, kind of match the length of the grass that's in. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. Take a sample, a color sample from the grass nearby. So like this green right here. Keep a small brush, either 2 or 1. Probably want it at 100 opacity. And kind of do some more on the outside to make them kind of blend so they don't look like just painted on grass strokes. This hoof is up in the air so it doesn't need any. These back here, yeah, you don't want to use the super light one. In the front, just gonna draw over that one like this. This is gonna make a huge difference in your horse's feet. I cannot say enough good things about this technique. Throw in a couple of, that's kind of distracting actually. Don't do that. But add a couple of darker strands in there. Why isn't this going over? Just like it to. Ah! There we go. I was wondering why that was doing that. Wow. Look at the difference. Okay. So we're almost done. The other thing is you're going to want to blend this right here, this mess. So you're going to want to... Actually, I kind of screwed up there, so I'm just going to paint over it. Use this smudge tool. Alright. Cool. She looks awesome. Alright. So, the last steps for this, are going to be to add in an eye color, because her eye is kind of lost in there. What color does... I don't need this anymore. Kind of that golden brown. Again, I suggest taking a color that's already on the horse. Unless you're gonna make their eyes like blue or red or something crazy like that. But this one doesn't have crazy eyes. zoom in pretty close on a separate layer. You can kind of see where the outline was. She's got big eyes. Her eyes aren't that big. She looks like an anime horse. Whoa. That's better. Okay, there we go. Cool. Very cool. Alright, the last thing I would do... Oh, should have done this before. Add a vignette. Even if you already have an image that has a pretty strong vignette, just do it. Get in that habit. I might make her a little bit darker. Just because I think she stands out a little bit too much against the background. I mean, we want her to, of course, but something doesn't seem quite right. Not crazy about that contrast. You know, I'm gonna do it. Alright. Haha, cool. Okay. I might do a little bit last minute cleanup around the legs. Just to make them look really sharp. Especially these front legs. I want to look really sharp. Oh yeah, almost forgot. So, to kind of add like a glowy effect to your horse, this is what I like to do. I go to layer style. This kind of makes a big difference too. I'm going to do inner glow, and then outer glow. And you can play with these settings, but creates a nice effect, I think. Blue. Sorry if I'm getting kind of quiet on y'all. I might do a drop shadow too. No, I'm not gonna do drop shadow. Alright. It's subtle, but there is a difference. See? Gives her kind of a ghost-like appearance. There. The only thing I would do is make these back legs darker since they seem kind of cool. I don't know. Not dark enough. Load selection. Back a little bit too prominent. Alright, yeah, cool. Alright, so I recently started signing my images differently. I'm using my avatar emblem thing that I made instead of putting it in the corner, I'm just kind of putting it in a random area on the canvas. Just kind of change things up and make it less distracting. Usually I do it like down here, wherever there's a lot of negative space. This is fine. I'll go back to when I don't need you anymore, Nate. This one. I did this one earlier. Just in love with it. Oh, it's so great. It sounds so conceited, but really I'm pretty proud of it. So I'm gonna copy these layer effects. Alright, I won't bore you with this, but thanks for watching, guys. That's how you do a Pinto. Let me know either on the forums or in a PM or in the comments below what you'd like to see next if you thought this was helpful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.